So we're about halfway into the trial of Erin Patterson. She's facing 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder that relate back to a lunch she hosted at her house in Leongatha back in July 2023. So the prosecution say that Erin Patterson deliberately poisoned her lunch guests by using death cap mushrooms, and that when she did so, she intended to kill or seriously harm them. The defence say this was an accident, a tragic accident, and that it's up to the prosecution to prove otherwise. There's no dispute at all that is how they died, that they did eat death cap mushrooms in beef Wellingtons that were prepared by Erin Patterson, but they say this was not her intention. She made an awful mistake. After that, she did things that she wished she hadn't because she panicked, but that it's the prosecution's job to prove to the jury that she had meant to kill or seriously harm those people. So far, we've heard from about 27 witnesses, and this includes people such as Simon Patterson, Aaron Patterson's estranged husband, who the courts heard was actually invited to lunch that day but cancelled the night before after initially accepting that invitation. And also from Ian Wilkinson, who's Simon's uncle and was the only lunch guest to survive. It was quite fascinating hearing what he has to say, because obviously it's only him and Aaron Patterson from that lunch who can still speak about what happened that day. Him and his wife were a little bit, I suppose, confused almost, but happy and excited to be invited for lunch at Aaron Patterson's house. He said Gail and Heather both offered to help Aaron in plating up the food, and Ian Wilkinson said Aaron Patterson refused that. Then the plates were carried over to the table. There were no set assigned spots, but that basically the women, Heather and Gail, carried 2 plates over each, and then Erin carried over her own plate. And he said there was a clear difference between the plates the guests got, which were large grey plates, and the smaller, he described it as orangey coloured plate that Erin had. So the prosecution say that Erin Patterson actually invited the guests on a false premise as well, that she told them she had some sort of health situation she had to discuss with them because she wanted advice on how to tell her kids. It was later revealed that she told them that she had cancer. The prosecution say that the fact she lied about this is another sort of plank, I guess, that they'll try and walk the jury on to get to that guilty position. The defence is saying, yes, we concede she was never diagnosed with cancer. The courts also heard from quite a number of staff at Leongatha Hospital. Most of her guests went into hospital early Sunday morning. Erin came in on Monday morning. The people there who had already treated some of the lunch guests and were aware of other lunch guests that were sick sort of put 2 and 2 together quickly and realised, okay, this is the person who actually prepared this meal. She's potentially eaten the same food. We need to act fairly quickly here to get this woman treated. But Erin actually left within 5 minutes and discharged herself against medical advice. Erin came back later that day. When she got back into the hospital, one of the nurses who'd actually treated the Wilkinsons gave evidence and said, look, Erin did not look unwell compared to Ian and Heather Wilkinson. She said that she was sitting up sort of in bed and appeared to be able to converse quite freely, whereas Ian was so unwell he could barely lift his head off the pillow. And the prosecution said in their opening that it is their case that Erin was not actually sick with death cap mushroom poisoning, and that she in fact sort of faked these symptoms in order to not arouse suspicion. The prosecution are also saying that Erin Patterson, after that lunch, did things that the jury are able to find prove her guilt, such as taking that dehydrator that was used for the mushrooms and taking that to the tip, and then later telling police she never owned a dehydrator, telling police she'd never foraged for mushrooms, and instead actually telling multiple people, health authorities, people from council, her own family, that she'd got the mushrooms for those beef Wellingtons from Woolworths and also from an Asian grocer. So the defence in the case made clear in their opening that the jury had to decide by basically listening purely to the evidence, nothing else. And Erin Patterson's lawyer actually got up and said, at the moment, Erin Patterson is over here. She's not guilty, and it's the prosecution's job to move you as a jury all the way over here with not guesswork and theories, but with evidence. And they're basically saying that, look, the evidence is not going to prove that to you. You are not going to be satisfied at the end of this trial that what Erin Patterson did, she meant to do. And it was, I guess, quite clear in the messaging that Justice Christopher Beale gave to the jury at the end of those opening submissions that the two key questions in this case are, did Erin Patterson intentionally put death cap mushrooms in those beef Wellingtons? And if the answer to that question is yes, the jury finds, did she mean to kill or seriously harm her lunch guests when she did that? So that's what he said are the key questions in this entire case.